Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the meeting of the Cabinet at Staffordshire County Council today, Wednesday, the 24th of January. The first item on the agenda is apologies. Mr. Bradbury, do we have any apologies?
Good morning, Leader. I have just the one apology from Councillor Jessel.
Agenda item 2 is declarations of interest in accordance with Standing Order 16. Does anybody have any declaration of interest? Agenda item 3 is the decision notice of the meeting held on the 13th of December 2023. Is it your wish that I sign that as a correct record of the meeting? For the record, that is unanimous. Agenda item number 4 is the Leader's Update. Welcome to this first Cabinet meeting of 2024. We have a busy agenda this morning and indeed for the year ahead. Firstly, I'd like to talk about Noreen Oliver. I wanted to start this meeting by paying tribute to Noreen Oliver, who I met, who sadly passed away. Noreen was a truly remarkable woman who turned her own previous struggles with alcohol into an inspirational crusade to help others battling with addiction. In 1998, Noreen founded the Burton Addiction Centre, known to us as the BAC O'Connor Centre, and for more than a quarter of a century, she battled not only to give people the support they needed, but to give them a second chance when perhaps nobody else would. Noreen undoubtedly helped transform the lives of many, and her legacy and the lives she saved will continue thanks to her efforts. It was a wonderful visit that I did many years ago now to the centre. She was a passionate, well-motivated, driven lady based on her own experiences. And to the team within Staffordshire County Council who facilitated that visit for me, Tony Bullock being one, I was and remain grateful for that opportunity to see that hard work that was done. Secondly, the Ofsted inspection of children's services. Keeping our most vulnerable children safe is a key priority for this County Council and for me personally. A recent inspection by Ofsted showed that whilst the care of children in our care is good, we do need to do more to raise the bar across the service. Inspectors recognise the efforts made by our frontline social care staff to protect children, but we accept that there is still more hard work to be done, and we will hear more about this later in the meeting from Councillor Sutton. New Year's Honours. This year, 15 people in Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent received awards in His Majesty the King's New Year's Honours list. It is always wonderful to see residents recognised for their hard work and commitment to their communities through areas of expertise, representing their local communities or volunteering. We send all recipients our warmest congratulations and thank them for the contributions they have made and continue to make. Moving to winter highways. Winter undoubtedly takes a toll on our roads, with rain, floods, high winds, ice and snow really stretching our dedicated highways crews. We have one of the biggest highways networks in the country with over 6,000 kilometres of roads, and keeping our highways in a good state of repair remains an ongoing and costly challenge. And we are honest with people about that. Potholes in particular are always a problem at this time of year, and we know this. And I want to reassure people we're doing what we can to deal with them with the resources available and the weather conditions permitting. We have already announced that we will carry out at least an extra £50 million worth of repairs and essential maintenance over on the 6,000 kilometres of road in the county over the next 3 years, on top of any grant given by the government. This includes more road resurfacing schemes and getting potholes repaired quicker. So over the coming winter months, please do bear with us as our crews are out in all hours and in all weathers doing what they can to keep this county safely on the move. And I would like to pay personal tribute to the gritting teams who I see when I'm coming back late at night. There they are. For those of us who are tucked up, maybe watching EastEnders or during dry January, not having a glass of wine, there they are out there gritting away like mad to keep our roads safe. And I'm hugely grateful. Councillor Williams, if you can pass on my thanks to them. Next is climate change. While we still get the occasional cold snap, winters definitely appear to be generally milder and wetter. It is important that the County Council therefore continues to play its part, however small, in tackling climate change and reducing the impacts on our environment. We see our role as very much as leading by example for businesses and residents, and we are always looking for different ways to share our story. In 2023, this included the rollout of the giant carbon bubble to towns across the county to help visualise how their daily activities can impact carbon emissions. And I thought that was absolutely tremendous, Councillor Tagg. This has not only been well received by local communities, but in December received a top award for crisis communication. New Year's resolutions. It is this time of year when many of us also sign up for Dry January to lose weight and even vow to get fitter. But maybe in 2024, this could be the year where we look to give something back, maybe through volunteering and helping out in our local communities. Of course, there is one dedicated group who really do go the extra mile by opening up their home to foster a child or even more than that, children. We know that fostering gives most children the best chance of a happy life, so it's vital we have local foster carers to give them that opportunity. Our foster carers regularly tell us that fostering is an amazing thing to do, but we know there are still lots of myths out there putting people off. For example, people think you need to be married, own your own home, and you can't own a pet, all of which are false. This month we are holding drop-in sessions for people to find out more, so please, if you're interested, go to our Foster for Staffordshire website and find out more information. I've met foster carers at the Foster Caring Awards that were held many years ago in Shugborough, and I've got to say I was bowled over by the commitment. And I did do a brief stint, 2-year stint, my first wife and I fostering a nephew, and I tip my hat to people who foster. It is a hard job, but it's hugely rewarding. And the 2 years he spent living with us was fantastic, to the extent that by the time we finished, he used to call me Uncle Daddy, which I thought it was heartwarming. He was only little. Anyway, so now on to today's agenda. The next item on the agenda is Staffordshire Means Back to Business, brought to you by the Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Economy and Skills, Councillor White.
Thank you very much, Leader. Before I get on to the detail of my statement, as a Burtonian, I can't let the opportunity pass to pay my own tribute to Noreen Oliver, who's one of our brightest stars in Burton, a fantastic woman. I would just highlight one thing that you didn't mention in your statement, which is, in addition to the great work that the Burton Addiction Centre has done over many years, helping addicts at their point of crisis, I'd also highlight their social enterprise. Perhaps it's the way I can crowbar it into my update, which is the Langham's Tea Rooms in Burton and in Cannock Chase, which are run by recovering addicts and will give you a fantastic breakfast or lunch. I particularly recommend their oat cakes, but when you're there enjoying the really good service and the really good food, you'll also know that you're helping fund the work of the Addiction Centre. A wonderful woman, much missed, but the work that she started goes on, and you can support it yourself in a very enjoyable way. With that, onto the detail of my report, which is relatively brief this month. Firstly, I'll touch on the employment figures. This previous month saw an increase of 405 claimants in Staffordshire, which means that our percentage unemployment figure remains the same at 2.8% of our working age population, but with that increase. This remains much lower than the West Midlands average of 4.9% and the average for England of 3.8%. And I would just highlight the work of our jobs brokerage service in helping people to match themselves up with the jobs and the training that are still available in abundance in Staffordshire. Within that figure, the youth claimant count, I'm pleased to say, saw a small decrease of 25 claimants. And that means that the proportion of young people who are claiming universal credit in Staffordshire remains the same at 4.6% versus a national rate of 5.1% and a regional rate of 6.8%. Those are the statistics on employment. The other statistic I'll mention, though, which is a very happy one, and speaks to our overall aim in Staffordshire, which is to increase the productivity of our economy and through that to increase the prosperity of our people, is that we've recently had some figures released in terms of average earnings. Over the last year, average earnings in Staffordshire for our residents have increased by over 12%, compared to a national average across England of 5%. So people in Staffordshire are increasing their rate of earning at a higher rate than people across the country as a whole, more than double that rate. And that is a really important indicator of the success of our businesses and the hard work of our employees to justify that, but it shows the increasing productivity of the Staffordshire economy. A really important thing to note, and absolutely key to everything that we do here in terms of economic development. We'll hear later on in the agenda about our work regarding climate change, and I did want to take the opportunity to highlight two things within the business arena. So the first of those is the very welcome news that the developers of the FIRS major units at the West Midlands Interchange Scheme, some enormous logistics sheds, have committed to tiling the roofs of those buildings with solar panels. One of the largest, I believe, one of the largest building-based solar farms that we'll see in the whole of the Midlands, which is being created in Staffordshire, should help make the interchange hopefully energy neutral in terms of its electricity, and something to watch the development of. And separately, on a smaller scale, but very consistently, I would just highlight the work of the Staffordshire Business and Environment Network, which over the last 7 years has been running a low carbon business evolution programme sponsoring businesses with grants, which has seen over 2,250 tonnes annually of carbon removed from the emissions of our businesses. Small but important point, and something that we're going to look to continue in years to come. The final thing to mention is that last month I updated Cabinet on the success of Staffordshire, both the county and Stoke-on-Trent, in becoming a local visitor economy partnership. So this is the top tier of tourist boards effectively for the country. And I'm pleased to say that on Friday we'll be hosting a National Tourism and Hospitality Conference at Alton Towers, one of our key attractions, which is the first event that we'll be doing directly with Visit England as a result of being a local visitor economy partnership. So a lot going on. The key thing, I think, is those wage growth numbers. It's fantastic to see our economy becoming more productive and our people seeing the benefits of it. Much more work to do throughout the year, but that is the update for today.
Thank you. Any questions for Councillor White? Nobody's indicating. Thank you. Moving on then to agenda item 6, carbon sequestration and woodland creation. Councillor Tagg.
Thank you. Firstly, I'd just like to echo the comments that yourself and the Deputy Leader have made about Noreen Oliver. I got to know her quite well when she was setting up the O'Connor Centre in Newcastle at Orchard House, which is in my division, and I think she does leave a legacy, and I echo everything which you've said. Moving on to the report before us, the report from the Climate Change Working Group, I really welcome this. And I think the County Council, as we know, as we saw at our meeting before Christmas, has made strides in reducing its carbon emissions 50% now through taking some quick steps over the last few years to reduce those carbon emissions. But we know that eventually we'll have to offset some carbon. And really pleased that the Corporate Scrutiny Committee decided to set up a working group that looked into this and drilled down into ways of doing this. And they did look specifically at woodland creation as a way of getting to creating a net zero option for the County Council. There are other options to offset carbon, which some are blue sky thinking at the moment, and I think as we get towards 2050, more options will become available for the County Council and others to begin to use to get to net zero and offset. But for the moment, woodland creation is a suitable alternative to those. And I think the report really covers three things which I was involved in as well as part of the working group: the visits to Norbury, listening to the Forestry Commission and the other nature groups as well on what they're doing. There's a lot of work already going on through creation of woodland, which is reducing carbon emissions, and there's a lot we can learn from that. So I think this report is something which we now take on as a cabinet and respond to. I think at this stage, I think that's all that I would like to say, but I would obviously offer the chair of the working group, Samantha, who's here today, if she wants to say anything on behalf of the committee, if you'd like to bring her in, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Councillor Thompson, would you like to just come forward and just give us a quick rundown of the work that you've done?
Thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you to the team that worked with me, and that includes the whole team, the officers, the councillors, everybody that worked alongside of us to produce this report. And I would also like to say thank you to Simon, because he has been a great support for us. And I'd like to say thank you to you all for taking this report in consideration. It is appreciated, so thank you.
Councillor Thompson, this is doing precisely what we wanted the overview component of scrutiny to do, which was to provide the executive of the council with ideas for subjects that we can take forward. And I know that Councillor Tagg has welcomed in particular this piece of work, and indeed Cabinet receiving it this morning is recognition of the fact that it is a substantive piece of work for which we are grateful. So thank you to your team and indeed the team in Member and Democratic Services who supported you with your work. I hope Councillor Tagg were able to develop these ideas, take some of them forward, and I look forward to seeing the progress. Back with you, Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Leader. Well, I'll read the recommendations unless there's any other comments from anybody else. Recommendation A, receive the report of the Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee Climate Change Working Group on carbon offsetting and woodland creation. B, provide an executive response to the Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee on the recommendations within 2 months of receipt of the report. And I think we have a report here which can educate and inform our decisions going forward on this very important agenda. Thank you.
You've heard the recommendations. All those in favour?
Agree.
That is unanimous. Moving on to agenda item number 7, Natural Environment Strategy, with the Cabinet Member for Environment, Infrastructure and Climate Change, which again is Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Chair. Really pleased to introduce this item, and I think obviously fits in with our previous item we've just discussed. And also, I think, on the agenda that we've brought to Cabinet over a long period, and also a motion we took to our full council a couple of years ago about nature recovery, and also about bringing back biodiversity. Now, as a council, we recognise the value and the vital contribution our natural environment makes to Staffordshire, environmentally, socially, economically, and for the health and well-being of our residents. We want Staffordshire to continue to be a great place to live. Caring for our natural environment will be the essential goal in achieving that. Now, the Environment Act from 2021 brought in new duties and requirements for local authorities in relation to biodiversity and the natural environment, including strengthening the duty to conserve and enhance biodiversity, the introduction of a mandatory biodiversity net gain through the planning system, which comes in, I believe, in February, our appointment as the responsible authority to develop a local nature recovery strategy for Staffordshire and Stoke, working with partners across the area. We've already kicked that off and are doing that at the moment. And the requirement to report on biodiversity. So the Natural Environment Strategy I'm presenting to Cabinet today has been developed to set out how we, as the County Council, will deliver our biodiversity requirements and enhance the natural environment for our residents. Our Natural Environment Strategy sets out measures we will take on our land through our functions with our partners. The 10 goals set out in the report on page 4 of the report link to the national targets and will even contribute to the global action to reverse the decline of nature, doing our bit for the whole. We will also deliver the ambitions of our nature recovery strategy, which I referred to earlier, which we made to full council in 2022. And now we're fortunate in Staffordshire, everybody knows this, that we manage some of, some really important sites of nature at the moment in all parts of the borough, but such areas of international importance, such as the heathlands at Cannock Chase, for example, and ensuring our designated sites are in good condition for wildlife, managing 30% of our land for biodiversity, caring for our protected landscapes, seeking nature-based solutions to mitigate and adapt to climate change, and installing measures to look after endangered wildlife on our properties are all things we can do to make a real difference as a county council. In the report, I'm really pleased that we've flagged up a lot of case studies, which are already things that are already going on across the county. I'll just go through a couple of those. Woodland planting in Kingswood, Lakeside in Cannock. Natural flood storage at St Leonard's School in Stafford. Gardening for better health in Burton-upon-Trent, focusing on helping communities to grow food with health and environmental benefits. Move More Moorlands. I hope that our Moorlands member, where is he, is taking part in that. As an initiative to encourage more active lifestyles over in the Moorlands. And at Cannock Chase, as I talked about, we're working in partnership with experts' advice from Staffordshire Wildlife Trust, a key partner on this agenda in our county, on a programme of habitat creation. So I think we're making a difference, and this is a key part of making a difference to where we live. And I think across the county, we will see through this environment strategy that the County Council is stepping up in its role as part of our Nature Recovery Declaration to bring back nature so that everybody can benefit. And as I say, we fit into a large jigsaw across not only this country, but across the world of bringing nature back, which will help our environment and preserve that environment for future generations. So therefore, recommend that the Cabinet approves the environment strategy, and I'll read the recommendations after any comments. Thank you.
Councillor Parry and Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, and thank you very much to Councillor Tagg for introducing and bringing this package of benefits to Cabinet to decide on this morning. I think which will be widely welcomed. There is, a responsibility on us as the up-tier authority in the county to do our bit, and clearly there are all sorts of organisations that are involved in wildlife and nature that will also be doing that, and there's things that we can do in terms of supporting and partnering those organisations which are also embedded in here. But this is a really rich and vital package of initiatives and approaches that the County Council will take. So personally, I really do welcome this. I just have one simple question, which I feel I may have asked before, but perhaps in a different way, and that is the net gain through planning. And I was just wondering if Councillor Tagg could perhaps just clarify for us the responsibility of the County Council, given that we're not the planning authority, but we have a responsibility to see that is done, as it were. I guess we're just kind of a oversight measuring kind of thing, rather than we have no enforcement. I'm not quite sure what that relationship is with planning authorities and our duty in this.
Councillor Tagg, would you like to hear other speakers first before you come back? Councillor Wilson and Councillor DeVille.
Thank you, Chairman. I would just like to say how grateful I am to the Cabinet member and his officers for such a fantastic report and such a fantastic direction of travel for our county. And we lead the example, don't we? We lead by example. So what we do, others will follow. I think particularly with the work that we're doing in our national landscapes, otherwise known as Cannock Chase and Chasewater, I think that work there is absolutely exemplary, and I really welcome this report, so thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, and what a great report. I'd like to thank Councillor Tagg for his sheer enthusiasm with the work that he's doing, and his drive and his ambition. And really, this report covers a myriad of really positive things, doesn't it, across Staffordshire? Everything from preserving nature, and I think that line in the introduction, Simon, by helping nature, we're also helping ourselves. How true that is. But it goes much further than that. You mentioned moving more in the Staffordshire Moorlands. That's something that I've been involved in for years and years and years. So this is not just about preserving nature, it's also about us enjoying nature and enjoying our beautiful countryside, and people participating in sport or just getting out and enjoying walking in the countryside. And I think with that, Simon, I think the overwhelming point is there that to enjoy activity in the countryside and enjoy nature, you don't necessarily need to be a Harry Kane or a Stuart Broad. Everyone can enjoy taking part, whether it's organised sport or whether it's just getting out and enjoying the countryside. But what a fantastic report, Leader. Something that we, as Councillor Wilson says, we in Staffordshire take this extremely seriously. It's a great report and one that I support wholeheartedly. Thank you, Simon.
Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you for those comments. And Mr Parry's right to raise the biodiversity net gain point. And of course, it is a responsibility of the local planning authorities to implement that, and they are doing that. And we're working closely with them anyway on that. But I think from the County Council's point of view, there's a couple of how it affects the County Council, and that is when it comes to bringing developments forward, we will have to obviously have biodiversity net gain included in any planning applications we bring forward. Then also, we, as an owner of a land, we can actually put land into potential as biodiversity net gain plus for developers to buy into that and use that as an offset for their new developments. So we have a two-pronged sort of influence in that. I think you also mentioned, Councillor Parry, about the partners, and I think, yes, we've got, I think it's over 20 different partners involved in putting together the biodiversity net gain, the local nature recovery strategy. That's not only the Wildlife Trust, that's our districts and boroughs, that's, you know, all the different, the farmers lobbying as well, all of those involved in this. So we've got a full breadth of those people that, you know, work on the land in Staffordshire, those that got an interest on the land in Staffordshire, and those that, through local authorities, you know, govern the local districts, boroughs and counties. So I think we've got a wide breadth on that. I think I'd like to thank the officers as well who've put this report together, because obviously they've got also the passion to move this forward as well. I think, as you see in the case studies, you know, our officers are involved in loads of schemes already across the county, and that will only grow as we bring this strategy forward. So I will now move... Oh, sorry, Councillor.
Councillor Parry wants a second bite at the cherry.
So just further clarification on the planning net gain. Does that include brownfield sites? If you're sort of reusing a site, would that also require the net gain?
It requires it all. Yeah, it's all land uses now. Yeah. Okay. So I'll move the recommendation now. And now I was expecting, usually there's like a whole series of recommendations. It was quite an easy one, this. So consider and approve with any amendments the Natural Environment Strategy. I so move.
You've heard the recommendations. All those in favour? For the record, that is unanimous. Agenda item 8 is Here to Help Progress Update, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Communities and Culture, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. The report for Cabinet's consideration today provides an update on the range of support which has been made available to our residents to help with the rising cost of living over the last 12 months or more. The County Council continues to prioritise support to vulnerable residents facing cost of living pressures. The County Council's leadership role on this included providing residents with information, advice and signposting to local community support. In October 2022, we launched the Here to Help campaign, which represented the core of the County Council's approach to helping residents. Along with the campaign, there was also a new support section created on our website, which collated all applicable advice, guidance and support into a single place. We also made sure that any associated programmes and funding were linked and well communicated to residents, to businesses and, of course, the VCSE sector to ensure maximum reach. This has all included a focus on our residents helping themselves and each other, as well as linking with partners to coordinate efforts where that was possible. The report shared today provides an opportunity for the County Council to consider the progress that we've made up until now and what our approach is going to be going forward. It includes an overview of the Here to Help campaign for the last 12 months, as well as the approach for this winter for consideration and feedback. The report also provides a summary of Staffordshire Centre for Data Analytics Cost of Living Data Project, a progress update on the work of this partnership group and the proposed next steps for both. And further, it provides an overview of the vast amount of work which has been conducted by multiple frontline service areas as part of their business as usual activities. Further detail of all of that work that I've mentioned just now can be seen in the attached appendices. The report has made several recommendations for consideration, which will enable the County Council to continue to provide signposting for individuals, communities, and supplemented by targeted interventions. So there are some stats on the report that I would like to go into in more depth. For instance, the Holiday Activity and Food Programme, which I know is championed by my colleague Councillor Sutton, has actually enabled 199,000 free places to children. The Household Support Fund has actually benefited 290,457 residents over the last 2 years. The Members Community Fund, which I'm particularly proud of, has allocated about £1 million to local organisations, helping residents with pressures in their local areas. We've also got the Community Recovery Fund, which has helped with £186,000 that's been awarded to VCSE groups and organisations during 22 and 23. And of course, the Warmer Homes Scheme as well, where we've installed over 450 heating solutions to residents' homes across the county. And that's actually saved our residents £650,000 on their annual heating bills. So I think this is a really fantastic project, and I'm really proud to have been able to deliver it in the last 12 months and obviously continue to go forward into the future. Before I read the recommendations, I welcome any questions, Chairman.
Councillor Sutton.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson, for that report. I wanted just to emphasise and pick up and give a little bit of an example from two of those areas, and that's the Household Support Fund and the Holiday Activity and Food Programme. The Holiday Activity and Food Programme during the winter ran from the 27th of December until the 5th of January, and 31 providers delivered 81 clubs across the county, with around 11,500 places being available. And I had the opportunity to visit 5 of those towards the end of the programme, which just showed young people there really enjoying themselves, working with other young people, developing skills, helping their mental well-being, and being involved with each other, learning social skills and having a nutritious meal, and at no time looking at their mobile phones or a screen, which I think has got to be a little bit of an advantage for their parents as well as themselves. And then the second part, the Household Support Fund, and I just wanted to pick up on one particular part of that, an element that we haven't done previously, but we did with this current year's funding, and that was financial assistance in relation to educational support. And what we wanted to do was use some of the fund to invest in a programme of financial support to provide the knowledge and skills for households to manage themselves. Within each of the 8 family hubs, we have family hub coaches that deliver direct financial support, education and resources to households most in need. And the sport's delivered across a number of areas, including face-to-face direct support, locality support, attending sessions delivered by some of our district partners as well, group workshops about staying positive, financial resilience workshops that include shopping on a budget, overcoming barriers to budgeting, cooking on a budget, and how to make savings on your energy consumption and overall financial resilience. And to the end of December, we had provided that sort of support and help to allow 3,912 households to look to be able to manage their budgets that little bit better. Thank you.
Councillor Parry.
I don't think we can underestimate the impact that this will have had across Staffordshire, particularly in those areas around children out of term time and their care and their ability to get a meal during the day. The impact that Vladimir Putin and his aggression and perhaps some of coronavirus has had in terms of disrupting the economy, causing significant levels of inflation, resulting in impact on families and the impact on the income of families and their ability to make ends meet. This has really been a useful, I think, package of support to get families through that period. And I think as we're now starting to see, hopefully, although inflation blipped a little bit this morning, the underlying rates for things like inflation on food and fuel are starting to ease, and hopefully we'll see over the next few months things in the economy starting to get better, and hopefully having less impact on those families for whom this kind of thing is not a luxury. This is a real important support. So I think this has worked really well. What it demonstrates is the County Council's ability to be an efficient partner in utilising central government funding to deliver impact at local level. And again, having an efficient voluntary sector infrastructure as well, which I know Councillor Wilson has been very keen over the last 12 months to drive improvements in our voluntary support network, which has played a vital role in how this has been rolled out and implemented. So across the piece, not just in the children in out of term time, the support for families and the support for those households needing help with heating and heating improvements has made, I think, a real impact. I also recognise that the Leaders Board is very keen to see legacy out of this, that, how do we continue to work together across Staffordshire to ensure that this kind of working and voluntary support can continue. I was just wondering whether Councillor Wilson really had any thoughts really in terms of how that can be extended if and when central government funding declines or dries up.
Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I'd like to add my voice to the comments that have already been made. I think we shouldn't underestimate the amount of money that's been put into helping people during this period with the cost of living crisis. I think if you take into everything that Victoria's talked about, Councillor Wilson talked about, also the council tax support for people that people have had as well, and also the energy support we had, if you remember, when bills were rising as well, and the cap was taken higher. That has really helped people. I think it gets lost at the moment, in all the politicals. We're heading towards a general election and issues are coming up all the time. But this is really, people should look back and see the investment that's gone in to try and help people. And I think, for me, I think as Victoria said about the local members community fund, members in Newcastle clubbed together with a scheme which Aspire are running for warm spaces across Newcastle. And particularly, I think, during this week, that's more important than ever. It's the coldest week we've had of the winter so far. And also, every time I go into Castle House, which of course is the council HQ for the Borough Council, got county social services and the police, we also have the library in there, and that is operating as a warm space as well. And that's people in there having a drink, having a chat, making friends, reading the newspapers and all of the books with the library, of course. And that's really an important asset in the town as well for people that are struggling and with heating costs being so high still, to come in, to have a sense of community, keep warm, and meet and interact with people, particularly in the older generation. So I think we're doing a lot, and I think we don't shout about it often enough, and it gets lost in all the political point scoring at Westminster, but that investment has really made a difference to people.
That's a very good point, Councillor Tagg, and I'm particularly drawn to the graphics after page 85, between page 85 and page 95, and it really shouts at you the amount of work that's been done in a very, very clear way, which is superb, and those points about other support that's been available. We do need to connect the dots to the point that Councillor White was making during his update, economic update, which is that there are jobs available out there. We have more jobs available than there are people claiming universal credit. And Councillor White also reported that wage growth is on the up, which is absolutely superb. So this authority has provided that bridge over what has been some troubled waters over the past few years. And I do hope that people take the opportunity not just to avail themselves of the services that we're providing now for those difficulties that people face with their cost of living on a day-to-day basis, but also the opportunities that are being created in the economy that Councillor White spoke about so eloquently earlier on in the meeting, because there is a connection between those things, and I think it's quite important we highlight that. I will bring Councillor White in because things I've mentioned his report, and then I'll back to you, Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, it's just to very much support what you've said, and just to highlight again the jobs brokerage scheme that the County Council has been running now since last year, which is a free service which matches people up with employers, but also crucially with the skills and training they require to access the jobs that are available. So that's there for anybody to use. It's a great service. You can access it online, but you can also talk to a human being. And we've already had lots of people who've been helped with that. So it's a really good service to use if you are looking for work.
Thank you. Just in answer to Councillor Parry's point, you know, as our leader has said, this is a bridge, isn't it, over a difficult period of time. However, in the background, there's the ongoing work that the County Council is doing, as has been mentioned. Also, the community fund, from tiny acorns, great oaks grow, don't they? And I think what we tend to do is, rather than you know, focus on giving a hand out, we focus on giving a hand up. And it's providing people with those tools that they need that they can take further. So, you know, last year we introduced the slow cooker scheme, where we were giving people slow cookers, recipes, and small swatches of herbs and spices and so on, and showing them actually how to provide a low-cost, low-energy meal that's fills you up and keeps you warm, and it doesn't cost a lot of money. So I think it's all about really educating and making sure that people are aware of what's available out there. But long may this continue. And I think the community groups and the voluntary sector are really the ones that we ought to be praising, because they're the ones that are going out and helping our residents to become safe and feel comfortable in the winter months. Thank you. So the report recommends that Cabinet notes how the County Council has supported Staffordshire residents to manage cost of living pressures, agrees the proposed next steps set out in paragraph 19, and notes and supports that the continued delivery of the County Council strategic plan through investment in early years provision, education, skills, training, and by attracting first-class businesses to the county, while supporting existing businesses to thrive and prosper, will support the long-term prosperity of Staffordshire residents. I move.
You've heard the recommendations. All those in favour?
Agreed.
That's unanimous. Moving on then to service provision of temporary and interim staff resources, brought to you by myself. The report talks about having over 3,000 valued full-time equivalent employees, which doesn't actually capture the number particularly well, because we've got an awful lot of part-time employees. So full-time equivalent's a technical word for how many we would have if everybody was working full-time. So there's a lot more people actually work at Staffordshire County Council than that, to be sure. We do need temporary employees on occasions, and we need to respond flexibly to where gaps appear. And gaps appear for all sorts of reasons. And so this report seeks to outline the requirements to recontract for a provision to supply temporary and interim human resources, known as agency workers, to the County Council to provide cover for vital frontline services. It provides background details on the current provider and the benefits of awarding through an established framework to retain the current provider for the next 3 years with an option to extend for a year. Now, I thought I would go for a more technical set of recommendations than Councillor DeVille has ever managed on one of his reports, and I think I've achieved that, ladies and gentlemen. I think you'll agree with me. But I do want to just highlight, as Councillor DeVille would do with his UPVC framework contracts, the actual value of this contract, which is huge. For those of us who can skip around quickly across the report, you can see in paragraphs 17 and 18 in particular, the value of the contract over the period of time we're talking. Over the full term of the recommended contract, it's anticipated that the annual value will be £8 million, equating to approximately £32 million over the full term, which is an increase of £4 million or 14.29%. The majority of the spend is used to support vital children's services, which is our biggest internal department by some considerable way. And Appendix 1 outlines usage and spend for the previous 3-year period. So it is a very, very big contract, and despite the fact it's got some fairly technical recommendations, I just want to draw your attention to the size of that contract. We don't want to use agency and temporary workers if we can avoid it. We would prefer to have people who are full-time or employed through contracts with the County Council. That provides us with the agency that we're looking for them to commit to the organisation. But it is the case that we do need agency workers and temporary workers. We will continue to do so for the foreseeable future, but we will manage as best we can to keep the use of that as low as we possibly can. So that's the report, ladies and gentlemen. Does anybody have any questions before I move to the recommendations? It always looks suspicious when the leader presents a report and none of the Cabinet have any questions, but I'll just go for the recommendations then in that case. I recommend to
clarifications. Just to convince ourselves that you haven't got this through on the nod. The £8 million contract isn't a contract that's going to line the pockets of a company. This is embedded within that is the wages of all those people we're going to employ. We haven't really got a feel for how much does that buy us?
That's an almost impossible question to ask. So, if I thought I was going to get this through on the nod and then Councillor Parry comes up with an absolute stinker of a question to which there is no real answer, it depends who we need to, which members of staff and at what grade that we need to fulfil the interim and temporary contracts for. So it is covering the cost of wages. It isn't lining the pockets of a contractor, but thank you for at least rolling out a question so it doesn't look like it's going through on the nod. Right, the two recommendations are that we continue to operate a neutral vendor model for the provision of temporary and interim human resources, and this is where I go into competition with Councillor DeVille, awards and enters into a 3+1 year call-off contract from Eastern Shires Purchasing Organisation, known as ESPO, Framework Agreement 653F/23- Managed Service Temporary Agency Resources, M*4 with Commensura. All those in favour?
Agreed.
That's unanimous. Next item on the agenda is the Ofsted report. This is brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People, Councillor Sutton.
Thank you, Leader. Staffordshire Children's Services were inspected in November 2023. The final report was published on the 12th of January of this year. Although the experience and progress of children in our care was rated as good, Children's Services overall has been rated as requires improvement to be good. Children's Services in Staffordshire have been rated good for a decade, so the result of this inspection requires some careful reflection. However, we accept the findings, and I can assure everyone that protecting vulnerable children is our absolute priority. We are committed to improving our services and have already begun taking steps to do so. From the moment Ofsted gave us their initial feedback, we've been working on a comprehensive improvement programme. And last Friday, when the report was published, senior leaders met with staff to explain the findings to them. Ofsted have stated that the areas for improvement are the quality and effectiveness of contracts, referrals and assessments in our front door, the effectiveness and impact of performance data and quality assurance, the effectiveness and oversight of allegations against those in positions of trust undertaken by the local authority designated officer service, and the effectiveness of partnership working with health and housing. At no point did they question the direct work done by practitioners with children and families in the county. And at no time did they give us any examples of where they found children to be unsafe. So we will be working on the following actions: stronger performance targets and more structured monitoring, a clear escalation process for children and young people if they feel progress on issues isn't quick enough, closer cooperation with health and housing providers, and more sampling of work. We have already invested, as a Cabinet here and the Council, over £5 million into the services at this into the service, and this has resulted in additional staff and the reduction of higher grades for a number of social worker positions. This will assist with capacity issues and also assist with improving retention and recruitment of our staff. That all said, there are many positives in this report, particularly around the experiences and progress of children in care, which was rated good, and in particular, timely action with the best interest of the child at the heart, good relationships children had with social workers, good work to get children back to families where appropriate, and good work with wider families to avoid being taken back into care. Ofsted also said children who are at risk of going missing, exploitation or substance misuse are supported well to help them keep safe and reduce risk. Social workers have a strong understanding of each child's experience, and most children in care live in safe and stable homes which meet their needs, and matching is well considered for children to ensure that their individual needs are met. Disabled children in need benefit from social workers who have a thorough understanding of their needs. They are strong advocates and enable children to participate in everyday activities and be part of the community through bespoke packages of care. Children are visited frequently in line with their needs and seen alone where appropriate. Children's records are detailed and sensitively written. Most young people who present as homeless received a detailed assessment of their needs, their wishes are clearly recorded, and their rights and entitlements explained to them. As a result, these children are afforded suitable accommodation and support with their finances, education and training. Children who live in private fostering placements receive an effective service. Children are seen in a timely way and assessments are strong. Children's views are clearly evidenced throughout. Our frontline practitioners are dealing with over 5,000 children. I'm particularly proud of the work they do and the commitment and dedication they show daily to improve the lives of vulnerable children across Staffordshire and help to keep them safe. There is a total commitment from me, this Cabinet and senior leaderships to do what is required to ensure our staff are completely, fully supported so we deliver the improvements that are required to ensure that we are graded once again by Ofsted as a good children's service. I'll finish there and to obviously take any questions.
Councillor Price and Councillor Parry.
Thank you, Leader. And as Councillor Sutton has said, there are many positives within the report as well. So I just wanted to highlight the two that are within the Education and Send portfolio, and particularly highlight paragraphs 12 and 13. So as part of the inspection of children's services, the HMI considered our arrangements to determine the suitability of our elective home education and to ensure children missing full-time education are able to access education as quickly as possible. And I'm pleased to see in the report that the inspector concluded that these are well considered, well implemented and ably managed. And we have to recognise the support of our education leaders who helped to make this possible. And I would like to recognise the work of our education team who undertake these roles to ensure our duties are delivered appropriately. As well as that, in paragraph 24, the inspector recognised the input and impact of our virtual school, who with our schools have developed effective partnerships to help children in our care make good progress from their starting points. The inspection recognised that children in care attend school regularly, and I know that the virtual school will be working with schools and social care colleagues to ensure that there are aspirational, academic, focused targets in all children's education plans and assessments. Thank you, Leader.
Councillor Parry, then Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. And I'm really grateful to Councillor Sutton for bringing this to us this morning. This is the first time, I think, as a Cabinet, we've had an opportunity to discuss this, and we're discussing it in public. And I think that makes sense because we want to be open and transparent with something which is probably the most important thing that we do as a county council and the greatest responsibility we have as councillors. So it's really important to recognise that, I think, that we want to do this openly and transparently. And I think it's really important also that we recognise the excellent work that has been done by our social workers and children's services staff and management in keeping children safe. And if there's comfort that we can take from this morning, and Councillor Sutton and Councillor Price have already outlined this, is that children are safe in the county, and the support that we give to children in the county is rated good. Obviously, we're not satisfied with that. We want to be better than that. We want to ensure that children in this county have every opportunity and are supported and encouraged to lead fulfilling lives. The important thing, I think, also to note, whilst we do, if you like, recognise the good things that have happened, the good things that we have, the fact that children are safe, we need to recognise that, I think, supervision, monitoring, governance is essential in this space, isn't it? That's, if we don't get that right, which is what Ofsted have pointed out, if we don't get that right, that leads to the decline, that leads to increased risks, that leads to problems. And that's why, personally, I welcome this report. I welcome the report because it reflects to us a learning point that we must take from this, which has our responsibilities and duties as a cabinet are that we must ensure that governance and monitoring and supervision and management around this, the architecture that keeps it all working effectively, is robust. And I think what Ofsted are saying to us, it's not robust enough. There's need for maintenance here, there's need for improvement here. And I think the learning point for us, the takeaway for us, is that actually we have a duty, and I know Councillor Sutton and Cabinet have been on this immediately in terms of where is good practice, where is the learning, where is the improvement that we can make, and how can we recognise those weaknesses and those gaps, and how can we fill them, and how can we do that quickly and effectively to make sure that this is something that we take away and work positively with. We don't want to mitigate and disguise or any of those things. We recognise that we've got benefits of good children's support, children being kept safe, but actually the stuff that goes around it, we've got some work to do. Yeah.
Councillor Wilson, Councillor DeVille.
Well, I'm a corporate parenting member and I meet regularly some of the children in our care as part of the Voice Project. I've watched some of them when they first appear and they come into the room and they're so withdrawn and it takes a long time, but after a while you see them again and they come along and they've blossomed and they've really benefited from the care that we've provided to them. We really do hear their voices. We take very seriously their thoughts, their wants and their needs. And I feel the whole Children's Services team is absolutely committed to ensuring that our children are not only given the best possible care, but also have that voice to tell us if they do feel that there are areas in which we can improve. And I know that there are obviously frustrations that sometimes take too long to resolve, as per paragraph 41 within the report. We know that continues to be a real focus for everyone, and I'm sure that influencing policy and service development can only be a good thing for our children in care. I'm really proud of the work that we do as corporate parents here at the County Council and our team, and I know that there's a lot more work to do, and that work will go on, but I'm sure that this learning will pay dividends into making our future Ofsted reports and the care of our children in this county something to be even more proud of.
Councillor DeVille, Councillor White.
Yeah, thank you. I think the scenario that Councillor Wilson the picture that she painted, clearly establishes that this service is the most important area of work that we're involved with. And, Mr. Chairman, I think it's crystal clear that there's no complacency whatsoever on our part. with regard to this massively important area of work. I think it's important that to show the transparency that we do recognise there are areas for improvement. And I think Councillor Sutton is and his team clearly focused on those areas for improvement. And that, I think, gives us all encouragement. The other area, Chairman, I am, like Councillor Wilson, massively proud of the work that our staff do in the most difficult of areas. I'm also encouraged, it mentions in paragraph 5 that none of our children are identified to be at risk in Staffordshire. It also identifies that children who are at risk of being exploited are being supported well. So I think the bottom line to all of these considerations in this massively important report is that there's no complacency whatsoever. We'll continue to strive to improve, and we'll continue to focus, as Councillor Sutton says, in those areas of greatest importance. And I thank Councillor Sutton for bringing this report today. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor White.
Yeah, thank you, Leader, and thank you, Councillor Sutton, for bringing this report today in a very transparent way, as others have said. There were just a couple of things I wanted to build upon, and it's really about the ongoing work of the Children's Service, because I think one of the things that anybody who's experienced an Ofsted inspection anywhere else, and I draw an experience last year as a school governor from Ofsted inspecting primary school, where I sit on the governing body, and it is a snapshot in the moment in time. And if I take that inspection as an example, there were 3 areas highlighted in there where the inspector wasn't satisfied. The practice at the school was outstanding. One of them was new to the governing body. 2 of them were already being worked on, but at the time of the inspection, that work was not complete, and the inspector wasn't satisfied that that was being delivered to the standard expected. And I wouldn't want people to have the impression that that we are not always a reflective Children's Service, and we're not always striving for improvement. And many of the things that the inspector highlighted, I know, are things that we have been working on. But of course, the Children's Service works in real time, doesn't it? We can't stop the production line to reconfigure everything on one day. And I think that's just an important point to mention, because I wouldn't want our workforce in particular, all of those children's social workers and the people who support them, keeping children safe. And the key inspection finding that no child in Staffordshire has been unsafe, I think is the key here. We have to do that alongside this improvement work, and it's really important that we do that work in an open and transparent way, armed with the findings of the Ofsted inspection to make sure that we are focusing on all of the right areas. But I think that balance is really important in the mix when we are considering this in an open and transparent way as we are today.
Thank you. External inspection can give you a jolt, and this has surely done that. And I think that's a good thing. We've sat up, we've gone, oh my goodness. The Chief Executive and I have spent a great deal of time talking, thinking, planning about how we take this thing forward, how we take children's services forward, because we are required to improve, and that is what we are going to do. But I will echo the comments of the Deputy Leader, and I thank all our Children's Services staff for all the hard work that they do. There are things we'll need to change, and we want you to come along on that journey with us, because we are a good team, but we need to work harder to be better. And this report sets out in some detail those areas where we do need to make those improvements. So, Councillor Sutton, you've heard what other members of the Cabinet have had to say. If you could sum up, please, and give us the recommendations.
Yeah, I'd only be a relatively short summing up, I think. Just first to say that I echo the words of all the Cabinet members that have spoken. The ultimate thing with something like this is not to aim for the result of an inspection, but is to ensure that the children that are in our care, that we work with, daily get the right and proper outcomes and their which helps and assists them with their future, a byproduct of doing things right and taking on board what the inspectors have said will be that we get a good Ofsted in the future. We will be subject of a focused visit at the end of this year, but we're not sitting on our sitting there waiting for that to happen. We are implementing, as I've outlined already, work to ensure that the things that have been highlighted are put right. Working with our SAP, because that's the only way we'll do it, is working with our hard-working, dedicated staff to achieve this in the future. There is only one recommendation, and I think we've done it, and that I recommend to Cabinet that they considers the information contained in the Ofsted report.
Thank you. Further recommendation?
Agreed.
Agreed. That is unanimous. Agenda item number 11 is the forward plan of key decisions. The February and March Cabinet meetings are very full agendas, so if you can just bear with me. On the 21st of February, the following are in public. Civil Contingencies Policy and Business Continuity Management Policy, brought to you by myself. Integrated Performance Report, Quarter 3, 23-24, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources, Councillor Parry, and myself. And Testing to Destruction, whether or not you can get too much of a good thing. You've got Equalities, Diversity and Inclusion Progress Update, brought to you by myself. Lighting and ITS Energy Contract Procurement Proposal, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Highways and Transport, Councillor Williams. Procurement of Gas Supplies, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Commercial Matters, Councillor DeVille. Green Solutions, Staffordshire County Council, delivery of a pilot business energy advice service, brought to you by the Deputy Leader of Council and Cabinet Member for Economy and Skills, Councillor White. Homes for Children in Our Care, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People, Councillor Sutton. Household Waste Recycling Centres Equipment Placement Programme, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Environment, Infrastructure and Climate Change, Councillor Tagg. Moving forward into March, in public, the Joint Enterprise Legacy Committee, brought to you by the Deputy Leader for the Council and Cabinet Member for Economy and Skills, Councillor White. Recommissioning of Residential and Nursing Care Homes, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Health and Care, Councillor Jessel. Staffordshire's Joint All-Age Carers Strategy 24-29, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Health and Care, Councillor Jessel, and the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People, Councillor Sutton. Section 75 Agreement for the Provision of Adult Social Care Assessment and Case Management, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Health and Care, Councillor Jessel. And to give an illustration of how long I've been knocking around, I think that's about the 4th time I've done the Section 75 on this one. Moving in private, Burton Regeneration, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Communities and Culture, Councillor Wilson. Back to public, Capital Programme for Schools 24-25, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Education and SEND, Councillor Price. Highways and Transport Capital Programme, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Highways and Transport, much anticipated, Councillor Williams. Corporate Delivery Plan 24-25, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources, Councillor Parry and myself. Climate Change Strategic Development Framework Update, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Environment, Infrastructure and Climate Change, Councillor Tagg. Provision of Apprenticeship Services 2024, brought to you by the Deputy Leader of Council and Cabinet Member for Economy and Skills. And then moving forward into April in public, Children and Young People's Emotional Health and Wellbeing Service, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People, Councillor Sutton. Review of Local Authority Social Care Case Management Systems, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Health and Care, Councillor Jessel, and Cabinet Member for Children and Young People, Councillor Sutton. And then in private, unregulated placement update, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People, Councillor Sutton. And then in May, Community Learning Accountability Agreements 24-25, brought to you by the Deputy Leader of the Council and Cabinet Member for Economy and Skills, Councillor White. What a lot going on. My goodness. Right, that is the forward plan of key decisions. Agenda item 12 is the exclusion of the public. I move that the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business which involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in the paragraphs of Part 1 of Schedule 12A as amended of the Local Government Act 1972 indicated below.